It is.
Okay, we're back after a change tape break. Others, please.
Hi, Jennifer Fulton, 81 Redcoat. And I was just wondering, as far as the bus routes for this year compared to last year with the 5-minute change, our bus is 35 to 45 minutes or 40 minutes later.
Then there were other systemic changes. There were, depending on the population, and again, gentlemen, correct me if I'm wrong, but the routes change every year, depending on who's on the bus and what's the most efficient way to do it for the totality of the people that are on any particular bus. There's some people who had the 40-minute run last year, and this year they're 10 minutes, and then there's some people that had a 10-minute run last year, and now they're 40 minutes. It just depends. It had nothing to do with a change in start times. It had to do with change in the demographics of the particular route and the routing software and the population. It could have been that there were kindergartners on the bus last year that, you know, we stop at every house for kindergartners.
Correct.
So it's changes. There were always going to be changes in routes, and sometimes they're going to be shorter, sometimes they're going to be longer.
All right. I've been about 10 years with elementary drop-offs, and they've ranged maybe 20 minutes.
May I ask what bus number?
Afternoon or morning?
Afternoon.
Okay, so
We've been anywhere between 3:45 and 4 o'clock.
May I ask what bus number? I'm sorry, I didn't hear. What bus number is it?
I'm 24.
24.
I was just wondering if, 30 minutes change is going to be acceptable.
It could be, right, it could be, and it could be for everything that Mr. Bloss said. It may have very little to do with the change in the bell schedule. It may have to do with the run itself. We may have added more students to that run. There may have been students who moved in or out of it could be any number of pieces.
Are you talking about the length of the run when they get on the bus is longer?
Well, when they get home, like your bus time, I think we were supposed to be
Don't go
3:58.
Don't go just comparing it to the bus.
And, no, but I mean, in the past, we were, 4 was the latest my daughter ever got dropped off, but last year and the year before, it was more like quarter of or 20 of. And now it's, 12 after, 25 after.
Jen, your bus 24?
Mhm.
What's your address?
81 Redcoat.
And my kids are bus 24 down in Mulberry Point. So we'll look at that. Yeah, I mean, this is what they're going to look
It's a
at.
different
and
different
just
grade level?
determine.
Or different grade level?
Guilford Lakes.
Elementary. Oh, so different bus, the same.
Elementary.
Okay.
Well, we'll look at it.
We're
And
looking
at it.
we'll look at it and encourage you to either communicate with Mr. Bowden, who's the assistant superintendent, who's oversees Mr. Dorwin on this issue. But Mr. Bowden's email is on the website, bowdenj@guilfordschools.org.
And I did pass on the links to the old runs that I was able to find.
Okay. Yeah,
But I don't
runs
know
are going
if
to
you
change.
guys got-
Runs are going to change, though.
No, I mean from last year, if they
Yeah.
wanted to compare. Because
Oh, I see. Okay, sure.
If it was still on the website, like if Lakes didn't update, or Adams or Baldwin, the high school updated, so it wasn't on there. But all their lists, all their runs were listed.
Okay.
Thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
Jackie Esposito, 3122 Durham Road, and a driver in town for 12 years. There are so many changes right now, and I feel for the parents. Being a mom, I feel for you guys. That being said, the new company was handed quite a handful. They overcame obstacles that I didn't think they could overcome. They had to staff a yard that hasn't been fully staffed in the entire time I've been there in 12 years. We've borrowed drivers from other towns. We're just about fully staffed, right, guys? With drivers that are ours, with drivers that are going to stay with your children and be invested in your families. There are different runs. I had run 24 in my hands today. 22 is near and dear to my heart because I used to drive it years ago. I got to see some of my old middle schoolers that were my kindergartners today because of an emergency. You're always going to have emergencies. When you have new drivers, you're always going to have that rougher start. That's going to allow for the fine tuning. These guys were handed over runs that, before that, I mean, our old manager was in that yard for 30 years. So he had eyes on those runs for 30 years. They were polished and they were refined. These guys got handed 20-something runs that no one had ever set foot with live children in them. That's tricky. That's tough. As an experienced driver, I don't want to be a spare. I don't want to not know every one of your children. I don't want to not know every single parent that's supposed to be there for that child. The spares that were on 22, incredible people. I don't envy their position. I wouldn't want it. I do know they tried really hard. To say it's not good enough is fair. It's fair. So you're looking at those later start times, the traffic. I wish that we could get a crossing guard. So years ago, we had a crossing guard at the high school. We had a crossing guard at Adams. Those are the most difficult that I see as a driver. Today, I'm first bus out. I get to leave a couple minutes early because I go all the way out to Old Pent Road. I waited 4 minutes to be able to get out. My run isn't too touched by the late start times. I'm running about 15 minutes later, which would be the start time inevitable. I know they say we pushed it 5 minutes for the elementary. But when a bus is running 15 behind for high school, 10 behind for middle school, 5 behind for elementary, we can't make up that time. There is no buffer. You don't want your driver to make up that time. You don't want your driver to hurry. You don't want your driver to feel rushed or feel pressured. So when a driver, especially a new driver, but any driver, I would do it, I admit it. If you have a driver that has parents chasing them down, it completely discombobulates you. You want your driver focused on getting your children home safely. I'll knock on wood, we've done that, despite all of the hurdles. The new drivers will refine. The new runs will refine. I had 24 in my hands today. I had a couple other runs in my hand today. 22 was on it. These guys are on it. The new manager, she's having us call in. Every time we drop off at a school, every time we pick up at a school, we're calling it in so she could keep track of the times. They want to know what's going on. They want to know where we could fix things. We were handed runs. We had a meeting today where they had said, okay, it was for the seasoned drivers. Where can we fix this? Because when you have those 30-year-old refined runs, there's no software that can replace experience of a driver. The old company knows that. So when those runs disappeared, they knew it was going to be more of a challenge for these guys. When an experienced driver goes down the road, they can see, okay, this is door side, but this student can cross. These guys, it's safer to turn here, not here. They can pick up things like that. A new driver is focused on which road is which, don't let me miss a child, make everything go well. So they're not going to pick up on those things as quickly as a seasoned driver can. The new company has asked the seasoned drivers to pretty much pair up and look at the runs and see, okay, what can we do differently? They're on it. But as far as my child is home later, they're home later. I hear a lot of parents that I'm friends with or I just know through the schools saying, we're home an hour later. Well, are you home an hour later from the dismissal time, or are you home an hour later from what you were last year? Yes, there's some errors that are being worked out and some sticky situations, but I think the general and the norm is most of the buses are running 15 minutes later than last year, which will compensate for the start time. So that isn't going to really be refined much unless they do major overhauls on the runs. As far as the other things go, the traffic, we would love a crossing guard up, especially Adams or the high school, especially the new high school where they don't want to let you go. The buses, no one wants to be stuck behind, a bus doesn't want to get stuck behind a bus. No one wants to be stuck behind a bus. But when there's 100 people just going by and I'm sitting there and I'm first out and I'm leaving 3 minutes earlier than the other buses are going and I'm waiting 4 minutes and I'm like, okay, maybe I can go now. No. And I'm watching them today. They're not even stopping for the kids that are in the crosswalk. It's dangerous. I mean, maybe a four-way stop sign, a crossing guard, something up there. It's an accident waiting to happen. There's been a few actual accidents in the previous years, but God forbid something horrible other than just running behind. You know, you guys already know the traffic coming up to the high school. There's middle school runs that have to avoid the high school area to make their middle school on time. And then there's the pushing back of runs, like some people were saying, why are we getting there so early? In order to get everyone to school on time, we have to be able to get from point A to point B in X amount of time. We have to make it to each school to where the child can start on time. I know that hasn't been everybody's experience. I promise it will be. But that being said, some of the late start time is not going to be as effective as they may have hoped for, because now we can't get here at this time if we're picking up at that time. The Board of Ed, you know, Chip is in charge of transportation, putting the runs together. He had the new software to learn. So there are so many different variables that everybody's working on. I know these guys pulled off the unthinkable. I know they're still working on it. I know we're working on it. Today, I don't even know if I want to say what time I clocked in and clocked out today. I'll stand this way with that. But we worked our butts off today just grabbing runs, going on my breaks where I wasn't having lunch. Sherry gave me a thing of water because I was like, I need to get a drink of water. Because on my breaks, I was taking them, Peggy's another driver. She was taking these runs and going, let's see what's wrong. I pulled another bus run, bus 18. I'm sure you've gotten calls. Let's see where we can combine things, where we can cluster something. So they are being worked on. But I'm going to still beg you guys for crossing guards or something up there to just help us get out safely, and it you know, keeps everybody safe up there. That's all I got.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Others? Anybody else? The police do have people up there for at least a couple of days at the beginning, but you know,
Police
that's
help with the
that's
first
not-
few days,
yeah.
but can't do it all year for us. It's something that we've been discussing.
Yeah, okay.
And just a thank you to the bus drivers, too.
Yeah,
I mean, it's such
seriously.
an important job, carrying our children and making sure that they're everywhere safely. So I appreciate that. I know we all do.
Yep.
Yes. Okay, if there are no other questions, is there, I don't think there's anything else on the agenda, is there?
No, that's
All
it.
right. Is Mr. Kazin, was that a motion to adjourn?
It was.
I thought so. I'm sorry.
I'll make that motion.
You make the motion. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Second, all in favor, please. Aye. All right, thank you.